The news of the alien craft's discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community, and Dr. Sarah Chen, one of the world's leading xenobiologists, was immediately summoned to the top-secret military facility where the alien vessel had been transported. As she approached the guarded compound, a sense of nervous excitement bubbled within her. After decades of theoretical research and speculation, the possibility of actual contact with an extraterrestrial civilization was both thrilling and daunting. Chen knew that her findings could shape the future of humanity's place in the galaxy. Presenting her security clearance at the gate, Chen was escorted to a sterile laboratory where the alien craft sat, surrounded by a flurry of activity. Dozens of scientists, engineers, and military personnel scurried about, analyzing every inch of the sleek, angular vessel. "Dr. Chen, we're so glad you could make it on such short notice," said General Randolph, the officer in charge of the operation. "Your expertise in xenobiology is going to be crucial as we attempt to understand our new guest." Chen nodded, her eyes already scanning the craft with a mixture of awe and professional curiosity. "Of course, General. I'll do everything in my power to shed light on the origins and physiology of our extraterrestrial visitor. Have you been able to make any preliminary assessments?" The general grimaced. "That's just it, Doctor. We haven't been able to get much out of the thing. The craft's onboard systems seem to be completely inert, and we've had no luck establishing any kind of communication with its sole occupant. We were hoping you might be able to provide some insights." Nodding, Chen made her way towards the alien craft, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous laboratory. As she approached, she could see the lifeless form of the extraterrestrial being, encased in a transparent stasis pod at the center of the vessel. Peering through the glass, Chen studied the alien's features with rapt attention. It was humanoid in appearance, with a large, elongated cranium and jet-black eyes that seemed to pierce into her very soul. Delicate, insect-like limbs were folded across its chest, and Chen noted the absence of any obvious respiratory or circulatory systems. "Fascinating," she murmured, already formulating hypotheses about the alien's biology and evolutionary origin. Turning to the general, she said, "Have you attempted to revive the specimen?" General Randolph shook his head. "We've been hesitant to interfere with the stasis pod systems, given the potential risks. Our top priority right now is to understand the craft's technology and determine the intentions of its occupant." Chen nodded in understanding. "That's wise. For now, I'd like to begin a thorough examination of the alien's physiology, if that's possible. The more we can learn about its biological makeup, the better equipped we'll be to communicate with it or defend ourselves if necessary." The general's brow furrowed at the mention of defense, but he reluctantly agreed. "Very well, Doctor. We'll provide you with whatever resources and support you require. Just be careful. We don't know what kind of abilities or powers this thing might have, even in its current state." Nodding, Chen turned her attention back to the alien, her scientific curiosity overriding any lingering trepidation. "Don't worry, General. I'll proceed with the utmost caution. This is a historic moment for our species, and I intend to make the most of it." With that, Chen set to work, her keen intellect and years of specialized training guiding her as she began the meticulous task of unraveling the mysteries of the extraterrestrial visitor. The fate of humanity, she knew, might very well hinge on the discoveries she and her team were about to make. As the bustling laboratory hummed with activity around her, Chen felt a sense of both excitement and trepidation. The future, it seemed, was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would test the limits of human ingenuity and resilience in ways no one could have imagined. News of the alien craft's discovery had spread like wildfire, igniting a frenzy of activity across the globe. World leaders convened in emergency sessions, weighing the implications and debating the appropriate course of action. Tensions mounted as the major powers jockeyed for control of this unprecedented situation. At the forefront of the scientific effort was Dr. Sarah Chen, whose cutting-edge research on xenobiology had earned her a place at the top-secret military facility housing the alien vessel. Alongside a team of the world's leading experts, she worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of the extraterrestrial technology and the being that piloted it. Within the confines of the sterile laboratory, Chen meticulously examined the alien's physiology, running a battery of scans and tests in an effort to understand its underlying biology. The creature's anatomy was unlike anything she had ever encountered, with subtle yet striking differences from the human form. The respiratory system appears to be entirely absent, Chen noted, her brow furrowed in concentration as she studied the scans. And yet, the creature seems to be in a state of suspended animation, with no discernible signs of metabolic activity. Fascinating. Nearby, a team of engineers pored over the schematics of the alien craft, their fingers flying across holographic displays as they attempted to reverse engineer its propulsion and power systems. The sleek, angular design was unlike anything humanity had ever produced, and Chen could sense the growing mixture of awe and trepidation among her colleagues. "We've never seen anything like this before," one of the engineers murmured, shaking his head in disbelief. "The level of technological sophistication it's breathtaking, really. But it also makes me wonder, what kind of civilization could produce something this advanced?" Chen paused in her examination, considering the engineer's words. "That's precisely what we need to determine," she replied, her voice steady and measured. "If we're to have any chance of communicating with this being, or understanding its intentions, we'll need to learn as much as we can about its culture, its history, its place in the greater galactic community." General Randolph, who had been observing the proceedings with a stern expression, stepped forward. "That's all well and good, Doctor, but we can't afford to be naive about the potential threats this alien represents. We need to be prepared to defend ourselves, should this turn out to be an act of aggression." Chen nodded, her gaze shifting to the immobile form of the alien encased in the stasis pod. "I understand your concerns, General. But we mustn't let fear cloud our judgment. This could be our first opportunity to make contact with an extraterrestrial civilization, an event that could have profound implications for the future of our species." The general's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, a technician hurried over, a look of alarm on his face. "Sir, we're detecting an energy spike in the alien craft. Something's happening." Immediately, the laboratory descended into a flurry of activity as personnel rushed to their stations, fingers flying across keyboards as they struggled to assess the situation. Chen felt a surge of adrenaline as she turned her attention back to the stasis pod, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Suddenly, the pod's transparent surface began to hum with a faint blue glow, and Chen could see the alien's body twitch ever so slightly. "It's waking up," she breathed, her eyes widening. "Get me a full bioscan, now." As the machines whirred to life, Chen held her breath, her gaze locked on the alien's face. The creature's obsidian eyes flickered open, and for a moment, Chen could have sworn she saw a glimmer of intelligence behind them. "General, we need to establish communication immediately," she said, her voice tinged with urgency. "This could be our only chance to make peaceful contact." Randolph's expression was grim, but he nodded, gesturing to his subordinates. "Do it, but be ready to move in if things go south." Chen knew the stakes were higher than ever. The fate of humanity, it seemed, now rested on her ability to bridge the gap between two vastly different worlds. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, prepared to make the first tentative overtures towards a new era of interstellar cooperation. As news of the alien craft's discovery spread across the globe, the world's population was gripped by a mix of awe, fear, and curiosity. Humanity had long dreamed of making contact with extraterrestrial life, but the reality of the situation proved to be far more complex and unsettling than anyone could have anticipated. In the public square, heated debates erupted as people grappled with the implications of this momentous event. Some advocated for a cautious, diplomatic approach, urging world leaders to extend a hand of friendship to their newfound cosmic neighbors. This could be our chance to join a vast galactic community and learn from beings far more advanced than ourselves, they argued. Others, however, were driven by a deep-seated mistrust and fear. They pointed to humanity's own violent history, warning that the aliens could pose a grave threat to the very survival of our species. We should strike first, before they have a chance to subjugate or destroy us. They demanded, their voices amplified by the echo chambers of social media. Caught in the middle were the world's political and military leaders, who found themselves navigating a minefield of conflicting interests and public sentiment. Geopolitical tensions flared as nations vied for control of the alien technology and jockeyed for strategic advantage in the unfolding drama. At the top-secret military facility housing the alien craft, Dr. Sarah Chen and her team of scientists worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of the extraterrestrial visitor. As the creature stirred from its stasis, Chen knew that the stakes had never been higher. "We need to establish communication," and quickly, she urged General Randolph, her brow furrowed with a mixture of determination and trepidation. The longer we wait, the greater the risk of misunderstanding or escalation. Randolph's expression was grim as he considered Chen's words. "I understand your concerns, Doctor, but we can't afford to be reckless. The safety of our people has to be the top priority. We need to be prepared for any eventuality, even if it means taking drastic action." Chen opened her mouth to protest, but before she could speak, a commotion erupted near the stasis pod. The alien's eyes had snapped open, its gaze sweeping across the bustling laboratory, with a calculating intensity that sent a chill down the spines of all who witnessed it. Silence fell as the creature stirred, its delicate limbs unfurling with a grace that belied its alien nature. Chen felt her heart racing as she stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Greetings, visitor from the stars," she said, her voice clear and steady. "We mean you no harm. We are simply seeking to understand your purpose here and to establish peaceful contact between our civilizations." For a moment, the alien's gaze fixed upon her, and Chen could have sworn she saw a flicker of recognition, or perhaps comprehension, in those dark, unfathomable eyes. Then, without warning, the creature's limbs lashed out, striking the reinforced glass of the stasis pod with a force that sent tremors through the entire structure. Randolph's face contorted with alarm, and he barked orders to his men, who rushed to secure the area. "Subdue it now," he commanded, his hand hovering near the sidearm holstered at his waist. Chen's eyes widened in horror as she watched the scene unfold, her mind racing to understand the alien's sudden, violent outburst. "Wait, General. Let me try to communicate with it first. There may be a misunderstanding." But her plea fell on deaf ears as the soldiers moved in, their weapons trained on the thrashing alien. Chen could only watch, helpless, as the tension in the room reached a fever pitch, the delicate balance between the two worlds teetering on the edge of a knife. In that moment, Chen knew that the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The actions they took now, whether driven by fear or wisdom, aggression or diplomacy, would echo through the ages, shaping the course of human history and their place in the greater galactic tapestry. With a deep breath, she steeled her resolve, determined to be the bridge that would connect these two vastly different civilizations. The future, she knew, depended on her ability to navigate the treacherous waters that lay ahead. Chaos erupted in the laboratory as the alien thrashed against the reinforced glass of its stasis pod. Soldiers rushed to secure the area, their weapons drawn and trained on the extraterrestrial being. In the midst of the pandemonium, Dr. Sarah Chen desperately tried to intervene, waving her arms and shouting over the din. "Wait, stop. We need to try to communicate with it first." But General Randolph was unwavering, his face set in a grim expression. "We can't take any chances, Doctor. That thing is a potential threat to national security. My men have orders to subdue it by any means necessary." Chen's heart raced as she watched the soldiers advance, their fingers hovering over the triggers of their firearms. "You don't understand," she pleaded. "If we react with aggression, we may be dooming any chance of peaceful contact. We have to at least try to understand its motives." The alien's obsidian eyes darted around the room, its insect-like limbs thrashing against the glass with increasing ferocity. Chen could sense the creature's growing distress, its alien physiology clearly not adapted to the stresses of its current situation. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoed through the laboratory as the stasis pod's reinforced barrier began to give way under the alien's relentless assault. Randolph's expression hardened, and he raised a hand, signaling his men to open fire. "No," Chen cried, lunging forward in a desperate attempt to stop the impending violence. But it was too late. A barrage of stun rounds slammed into the alien's body, causing it to convulse and collapse back into the pod, its limbs falling limp. A hush fell over the room as the alien's struggle ceased, its eyes closing in what appeared to be unconsciousness. Chen stood frozen, her heart pounding in her ears as she stared at the motionless form, a sense of profound sorrow and regret washing over her. Randolph approached her, his expression unreadable. "I warned you, Doctor. We couldn't take any chances. Now let's see what we can learn from this creature." Anger and disappointment flared within Chen, but she forced herself to remain composed. "General, you've gravely underestimated the significance of this moment. By resorting to violence, you may have irreparably damaged our chances of establishing communication and peaceful relations with an extraterrestrial civilization." The general's brow furrowed. "I don't have the luxury of worrying about diplomacy, Dr. Chen. My job is to protect this country, and that means neutralizing any potential threats, no matter where they come from." Chen shook her head, her gaze drifting back to the alien's inert form. "You're short-sighted, General. This wasn't just any threat. This was our first opportunity to make contact with an intelligent species from beyond our world. And now, because of your actions, we may have lost that chance forever." Randolph opened his mouth to retort, but before he could speak, one of the scientists hurried over, a look of both wonder and trepidation on her face. "Doctor, General, you need to see this. We've managed to establish a rudimentary link with the aliens' onboard systems. The data we're receiving it's unlike anything we've ever seen." Chen's eyes widened, and she rushed to the scientist's side, her earlier despair giving way to a renewed sense of purpose. "What have you found?" The scientist's fingers danced across the holographic display, pulling up a series of complex schematics and diagrams. "The aliens' technology is far beyond anything we've ever conceived of. Their propulsion systems, their power sources, it's all based on principles of physics that we can scarcely comprehend." Randolph leaned in, his brow furrowed with a mixture of curiosity and unease. "Can you determine the capabilities of this craft?" The scientist nodded, her expression grave. "Oh, we can. And I'm afraid the implications are quite alarming. This vessel, it's not just a scout ship, it's a cutting-edge warship equipped with weapons that could devastate entire cities. If the aliens who built this thing decide to come for us, we may be woefully outmatched." Chen felt a chill run down her spine, the weight of the scientist's words settling like a heavy stone in the pit of her stomach. Humanity was on the brink of a momentous and potentially catastrophic encounter with an extraterrestrial civilization, and the fate of their world now hung in the balance. The revelations about the true nature of the alien vessel sent shockwaves through the military and scientific communities. What had once been viewed as an opportunity for peaceful contact had now become a looming threat to the very existence of humanity. General Randolph's resolve only hardened in the face of this new information. "We need to act quickly," he declared, his voice laced with a sense of grim determination. "If this ship is as advanced as you say, then we can't afford to wait and see what the aliens' true intentions are." Dr. Sarah Chen's brow furrowed, her earlier sense of optimism now tinged with a growing dread. "General, we still don't know the full context of this situation. Resorting to aggression could be a devastating mistake, one that could provoke a response we may not be able to withstand." Randolph fixed her with a steely gaze. "I'm not willing to take that risk, Doctor." Our primary duty is to protect the people of this country, and if that means striking first, then so be it." Tension hung thick in the air as the two leaders stared each other down, their clash of ideologies mirroring the broader societal divisions that had erupted in the wake of the aliens' arrival. Suddenly, a series of sharp, staccato beeps emanated from the alien craft's control systems, drawing the attention of the gathered scientists and engineers. All eyes turned to the holographic displays, which were now flashing with a series of unfamiliar symbols and glyphs. "What's happening?" Randolph demanded, his hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm. One of the technicians, her face pale, turned to face the general. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel. It appears to be a message." Chen felt a surge of hope, even as a sense of trepidation gnawed at the edges of her mind. "Can you translate it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The technician nodded, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she worked to decipher the alien communication. After a moment, a series of words began to appear on the display, rendered in flawless English. "Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet orbiting this star. We are the Vrygoth, a peaceful species from the Andromeda galaxy. We have come to your world in search of knowledge and understanding, not conflict." Chen felt a profound sense of relief wash over her, and she could see the tension in the room begin to ease. But Randolph remained steadfast, his expression unchanged. "What do you want from us?" the general demanded, his voice laced with suspicion. The response came swiftly, the words conveying a sense of measured calm. "We seek only to establish diplomatic relations and learn from your civilization. We have no desire for conquest or subjugation. Our presence here is one of exploration and scientific inquiry." Chen stepped forward, her eyes alight with a mixture of hope and curiosity. "If that is true, then we welcome your overtures of friendship. We are a young species, still finding our way in the cosmos, but we are eager to learn and to share our knowledge with others." Randolph shot her a pointed look, his jaw set in a grim line. "That's all well and good, Doctor, but we can't just take their word for it. For all we know, this could be some kind of elaborate ruse to lull us into a false sense of security." The alien's response, when it came, was tinged with a hint of what seemed like sadness. "We understand your reservations, inhabitants of Earth. Your species has a long history of conflict and mistrust, and we do not expect you to simply accept our sincerity. However, we implore you to consider the possibility of a future where our two civilizations might coexist in peace, and perhaps even learn from one another." Chen felt a tightness in her chest as she contemplated the alien's words. They spoke with a wisdom and eloquence that belied their inhuman nature, and she found herself drawn to the notion of a galactic community where humanity could take its rightful place. But Randolph remained unmoved, his expression hardening. "I'm sorry, but I can't take that risk. The safety of our people comes first." With a heavy heart, Chen realized that the general's stance had hardened beyond the point of reason. Humanity's first encounter with an extraterrestrial civilization was on the brink of collapse, and the consequences could be catastrophic. As the Vrygoth's final message echoed through the laboratory, Chen knew that the fate of the world now hung in the balance. The path forward was shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was clear. The future was about to take a dark and unexpected turn. The tense standoff between the human representatives and the alien Vrygoth sent shockwaves of unease through the gathered scientists and military personnel. Dr. Sarah Chen could feel the weight of the moment bearing down on her as she struggled to find a way to bridge the growing divide. General Randolph's stance had hardened, his distrust of the extraterrestrial visitors overshadowing any hope of peaceful coexistence. Chen knew that the general's unwillingness to take a risk could very well doom humanity's first foray into interstellar diplomacy. "General, please," Chen pleaded, "we cannot afford to let fear and suspicion rule our actions here. The Vrygoth have extended an olive branch. We must at least attempt to engage in meaningful dialogue." Randolph's brow furrowed, his gaze unwavering. I understand your concerns, Doctor, but I cannot ignore the threat that this alien vessel poses. The data we gathered clearly indicates that it is a heavily armed warship capable of inflicting catastrophic damage. We cannot simply take the Vrygoth's word that they come in peace. Chen opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, the alien craft's communication systems crackled to life once more. The Vrygoth's voice, tinged with a sense of urgency, echoed through the laboratory. Inhabitants of Earth, we implore you to reconsider your position. Our mission is one of exploration and cultural exchange, not aggression. If you refuse to engage with us, we will have no choice but to take action to ensure the safety of our people. Randolph's expression darkened, his hand tightening around the grip of his sidearm. So it's an ultimatum, then. Stand down, or face the consequences. The Vrygoth's response was measured, but there was an unmistakable note of desperation. We do not wish for conflict, but we will not hesitate to defend ourselves if provoked. Please, let us work together to find a peaceful solution. Chen stepped forward, her eyes pleading with the general. General, you have to listen to them. If we resort to violence now, we may be dooming ourselves to a war we cannot win. Think of the consequences. Think of what it would mean for the future of our species. Randolph's jaw tightened, his gaze shifting between Chen and the alien craft. The weight of the decision was palpable, and Chen could see the internal struggle playing out on the general's face. Suddenly, a piercing alarm cut through the tense silence, and one of the technicians rushed forward, her face pale with urgency. Sir, we're detecting multiple hostiles on an intercept course. They're heading straight for the alien vessel. Randolph's head snapped around, his expression hard. What? How is that possible? The technician's fingers flew across the keyboard, her voice trembling. It's a rogue faction, sir. They're not responding to orders to stand down. They've launched an unauthorized strike against the alien craft. Chen felt her heart sink as the realization dawned on her. No, they're going to attack the Vrygoth. We have to stop them, before it's too late. But Randolph was already issuing orders, his men scrambling to intercept the hostile forces. In the chaos, the general turned to Chen, his expression grim. I'm sorry, Doctor, but we can't take any chances. If the Vrygoth refuse to surrender, we'll have no choice but to take them out as well. The safety of our people comes first. Chen's eyes widened in horror, her words caught in her throat as she watched the unfolding events with a growing sense of dread. The fate of humanity, it seemed, had been sealed, and the consequences would be catastrophic. As the first volley of missiles streaked towards the alien craft, Chen could only stand and watch, her heart pounding in her ears. The Vrygoth's desperate pleas for peace had fallen on deaf ears, and now the world was about to bear witness to a conflict that could shape the course of human history forever. In that moment, Chen knew that the future she had once envisioned, one of cooperation, understanding, and the advancement of her species, had been irrevocably shattered. The path ahead was now shrouded in darkness, and the only certainty was that the world would never be the same. The skies above the top-secret military facility erupted in a blinding display of destruction as the rogue faction's missiles streaked towards the alien craft. Dr. Sarah Chen watched in horror, her heart pounding as she realized the catastrophic implications of this unprovoked attack. General Randolph's face was set in a grim expression as he barked orders to his men. Scramble all available units. We need to contain this situation before it spirals out of control. The technicians worked frantically, their fingers flying across the consoles as they desperately tried to establish communication with the hostile forces. They're not responding, sir. It's like they've gone rogue. They're not following any of our protocols. Chen turned to Randolph, her eyes pleading. General, you have to stop them. This is exactly the kind of escalation we've been trying to avoid. If the Vrygoth retaliate, the consequences could be unimaginable. Randolph's gaze was unwavering. I'm sorry, Doctor, but we don't have a choice. Our priority is to protect our people, no matter the cost. We have to neutralize that alien vessel before it's too late. As the words left his mouth, a blinding flash of light erupted in the sky, followed by a thunderous roar that shook the very foundations of the facility. Chen felt the air rush from her lungs as she watched in helpless horror as the Vryggoth craft unleashed a devastating counterattack, its advanced weaponry reducing the rogue missiles to smoldering wreckage. The facility's alarms blared to life, and Randolph's men sprung into action, their weapons trained on the alien vessel. But before they could open fire, the craft's defenses lashed out once more, sending a barrage of energy pulses raining down on the compound. Chen ducked for cover as the laboratory erupted into chaos, the sounds of explosions and panicked shouts filling the air. She could feel the ground trembling beneath her feet, and she knew that this was no mere skirmish. This was the opening salvo of a war that could engulf the entire planet. As the smoke cleared, Chen emerged from her hiding place, her eyes widening in horror at the devastation that surrounded her. Twisted metal and debris littered the ground, and she could see the lifeless bodies of soldiers and technicians scattered amidst the wreckage. Randolph staggered to his feet, his uniform singed and his face smeared with soot. "Damn it," he growled, his expression twisted with a mixture of rage and anguish. "We underestimated them. We have to call in reinforcements. We need to mobilize every available resource to bring that thing down." Chen felt a surge of despair wash over her. "General, don't you see? This is exactly what the Vryggoth were trying to avoid. If we escalate this further, it will only lead to more death and destruction. We have to find a way to de-escalate the situation, to negotiate a ceasefire." Randolph's eyes narrowed, his jaw set with determination. "There's no time for negotiation, Doctor. The world is at stake here. We have to act, and we have to act now." With a heavy heart, Chen realized that Randolph was beyond reason. The general's fear and mistrust had hardened into a stubborn resolve, and she knew that nothing she could say would sway him. Humanity's best chance at peaceful coexistence with the Vryggoth was slipping through their fingers. As the sounds of approaching military reinforcements filled the air, Chen turned her gaze to the sky, where the Vryggoth craft hovered, its sleek, angular design a testament to its technological superiority. She could only imagine the panic and desperation that must be gripping the alien crew, trapped in a conflict they had never sought. In that moment, Chen made a decision. If Randolph and the rest of the world were determined to wage war against the Vryggoth, then she would do everything in her power to ensure that the conflict did not spiral into a catastrophic confrontation that could forever scar the future of her species. With a deep breath, she steeled her resolve and turned to face the general, her expression hardening. "General, if you're going to launch an all-out assault on the Vryggoth, then I'm going to need access to every resource at your disposal. This isn't just about defending our planet. It's about ensuring that humanity emerges from this conflict with its values and its future intact." Randolph's brow furrowed, but he nodded, recognizing the urgency in Chen's voice. "Very well, Doctor. I'll make sure you have whatever you need, but we need to move quickly. Time is not on our side." As the world braced itself for the possibility of an interstellar war, Chen knew that the fate of humanity now rested on her shoulders. The battle lines had been drawn, and the stakes had never been higher. She could only hope that her efforts would be enough to avert the catastrophic consequences that loomed on the horizon. The skies above the Earth crackled with the fury of an interstellar conflict as humanity's military forces clashed with the advanced technology of the Vryggoth. Amidst the chaos, Dr. Sarah Chen worked tirelessly, her keen intellect and scientific prowess the only thing standing between her world and total annihilation. General Randolph had marshaled every available resource, pouring the full might of humanity's military-industrial complex into a desperate bid to neutralize the alien craft. Missiles and energy beams streaked through the air, each side unleashing their most devastating weapons in a bid for supremacy. But Chen knew that this was a battle they could not win through brute force alone. The Vryggoth's technological superiority was simply too great, and any attempt at an outright assault would only lead to greater loss of life on both sides. Hunched over a series of holographic displays, Chen's fingers danced across the keyboards, her eyes narrowed in concentration. "There has to be a way to break the cycle of violence," she murmured, her mind racing with 1,000 different scenarios. Suddenly, a breakthrough. Chen's eyes widened with a glimmer of hope as she studied the latest data streaming in from the battlefield. "That's it. If we can disrupt their communication systems, we might be able to force a ceasefire." Randolph, his face etched with the strain of the battle, turned to her with a look of skepticism. "Doctor, I don't think you understand the gravity of the situation. We're fighting for the very survival of our species. We can't afford to hold back now." Chen met his gaze, her expression hardening. "General, listen to me. If we keep escalating this conflict, it will only lead to mutual destruction. We have to find a way to de-escalate, to show the Vregoth that we're willing to negotiate in good faith." Randolph's brow furrowed, but before he could respond, a technician rushed over, her face pale with urgency. "Sir, we've just received a transmission from the Vregoth. They're demanding an immediate ceasefire, or they'll unleash the full force of their weaponry." The general's jaw tightened, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the edge of the console. "Tell them we'll never surrender. We'll fight to the last man if we have to." Chen's heart sank as she watched the exchange unfold. "General, please. This is our chance to find a peaceful resolution. If we don't seize it now, we may lose any hope of coexisting with the Vregoth." Randolph's gaze hardened, his voice laced with a sense of grim determination. "I'm sorry, Doctor, but I can't take that risk. The fate of our planet is at stake. We have to eliminate the alien threat, no matter the cost." With a heavy heart, Chen realized that she was fighting a losing battle. Randolph's fear and mistrust had blinded him to the possibility of a diplomatic solution, and she knew that any further pleading would fall on deaf ears. As the battle raged on, Chen turned her attention back to the holographic displays, her mind racing. If Randolph was unwilling to pursue a peaceful resolution, then she would have to find another way to break the cycle of violence. "There has to be a way to disrupt their systems without causing further harm," she muttered, her fingers flying across the keyboards as she analyzed the data streaming in from the battlefield. Suddenly, an idea struck her. "Of course. If we can jam their communications, it might force them to disengage and give us a chance to negotiate." Whirling around, Chen grabbed Randolph by the arm, her eyes alight with a newfound determination. "General, I think I've found a way to end this conflict without further bloodshed. But I'm going to need your full cooperation." Randolph regarded her with a skeptical look, but something in Chen's expression must have convinced him, for he nodded, his expression hardening. "Very well, Doctor. What do you need?" With a deep breath, Chen laid out her plan, outlining a daring strategy that would put her own life on the line. As the battle raged on, she knew that the fate of humanity hung in the balance, and she was willing to do whatever it took to ensure a future where both humans and Vregoth could coexist in peace. The world held its breath as Chen's plan unfolded, the outcome of the conflict hanging by a thread. In those tense moments, the future of the human species, and its place in the greater galactic tapestry, would be decided, with unforeseen consequences that would echo through the ages.